Yeah, I'd never been to Ireland. So when I'd got back to the UK, we obviously had no money whatsoever. Um, my brother had borrowed me a couple of grand. So I bought an old transit van and a few tools and made my way over to Ireland and drove over.
I know you said it was the best decision you ever made, and in hindsight, it probably was like that. But I suppose again, the question is, did it feel like that at the time?
Of course not.
So, Tim Sparsis, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to it.
So could we just start with the attic company? Tell me about what it is, what you do, who the customers are, and just anything about the company that you're kind of comfortable sharing.
Yeah, sure. So we're the attic company. Our name is on the tin. So we have our HQ in Lucan, and we basically convert unused attic space into livable rooms. So mainly it's bedrooms. We also do offices, en suites, cinema rooms, kids rooms. So we can do pretty much anything. So it's really just trying to find that issue at the moment in Ireland with a shortage of houses and people not having enough space and just giving them more space.
Is it a popular thing for people to do at the moment? Is it?
Yeah. Oh my God. So in Ireland now, especially since COVID, extensions are an absolute fortune. So converting the attic is just an absolute no-brainer. And as I said, they're adding extra space to their attic, to their houses, and they're not having to develop outside of their house space. So they have the space there, and it's just a matter of just converting it into a livable space.
What's the industry like? So what are and just forgive me because I know nothing about this whole kind of construction area or anything. If I wasn't going to a kind of specialist like the attic company and I just wanted to get my attic converted, what are the kind of options for me out there? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so it is very popular now, to be honest, in Ireland. So there is a lot of companies out there that just specialize in attic conversions. Other builders do them, but they're not going to be as quick. They're not going to be as efficient, and they're going to be probably a lot more expensive as well. So just as we just specialize in attics, we're very fast. We know what we're doing, and we can. We've got so much experience now in attic conversions. Myself or one of my sales team, we can go in there and we can visualize it all within minutes. And then it's just trying to then translate that to the customers and just show them what's actually doable. And then, we'll do a few sketches, show them what we can do and sort of go from there.
As you'll know at this stage, Tim is not from Ireland. He's it's quite a strong London accent. Can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up here in Ireland doing this business?
Yeah, so believe it or not, 9 years I've been in Ireland, but my wife and my kids still think I've got a London accent, which I obviously do. So as I said, 9 years I've been here. Before that, I was in the UK. I trained as a carpenter in my 20s. So I got very good, in the carpentry business. And that was my first sort of opportunity to develop spaces for people. You know what I mean? It wasn't straight away doing attic conversions, but we were in people's homes, developing stuff, making people's life easier. So that was I really enjoyed it from the start. That went on into my 20s where I got a crew of carpenters myself. And I actually went to work then for a loft conversion company. That's what we call them in the UK.
Okay.
A guy called Lee Murphy, LMB Loft Conversions. He was probably one of the biggest companies in South London at the time. So I went to work with him as a subcontractor. So I learnt my sort of trade, I suppose, in attics in the UK, which was very valuable, obviously, when I come over to Ireland.
Talk to me about trades for a minute, because I think for me anyway, and I don't know, being an accountant, I'm always sort of jealous of people who have a trade, right? Because I think it's AI is not going to be able to take it away. It's always needed, very very valuable. But there seems to be kind of less and less kind of good tradespeople out there. I'm interested just to hear your opinion on it, and maybe why you got into it.
Yeah, no, we're really struggling at the moment in Ireland. But I got into it because I just wasn't very good in school. And I knew I didn't want to, get a corporate job or an office job and sit behind a desk. And I've got loads of energy, and I just knew I wanted to get into a trade. So there was a couple of friends that were doing carpentry at the time, and I fell in love with it. And as you said, it's a dying game, and it's, believe it or not, because of AI and stuff, it just doesn't make any sense. Most of our employees now would be over the age of easily over the age of 30. You know what I mean? Between maybe 30 and 50. And there's not that many younger guys coming through.
It seems strange to me though, because it's not as if that everyone is academic and everyone can go into some sort of a I don't know, not a trade. It seems to suit so many people. So why is it you think that there's less and less people going into it?
I'm not too sure. Like, obviously AI and tech, it maybe sounds easy for these youngsters. You know what I mean? Creating an app or doing something like that is maybe for them, as in young eyes, just seems like an easy, opportunity. But getting a trade is amazing.
Once you have the trade and you're good at it, so having it done right and done properly is very important. But there also just seems to be kind of a lack of quality out there, as well as to, it just seems like a no-brainer. It really seems like a no-brainer. There's clearly money in it, so I don't, so there's the other thing. But yeah, I don't know what the issue is.
Yeah, so we are going to struggle in Ireland over the next sort of 10 or 20 years, with a shortage. And I know the government are trying to put in better courses and apprenticeships for tradespeople to get into. And yeah, obviously electricians. So like, obviously in the trade game, the electricians always will see themselves at the top.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and do you know what I mean? So it's quite funny. The sort of dynamic between all the tradespeople. And because we do attic conversions, we pretty much get every different tradesperson into a job, per job. So we have to obviously deal with everyone. But yeah, I really hope we, the government and we do something about that, because it's definitely going to be a shortage in the future.
So take me back then. So you're in London. You're doing loft conversions at the time. How did this kind of end up with you being in Dublin?
Really funny story, okay, and it was probably one of the turning points of my life, because I'd met a young girl at the time, was my girlfriend. She was from Brazil, and we decided to go to Brazil for a couple of weeks for a holiday to see her family and friends and sort of experience a bit of Brazil. When we flew over, I just fell in love with the place.
I was just saying, obviously
25 years old, lived in London, you know what I mean? The grime of working there, and, the traffic, and just, it's no fun, to be honest. So, and lucky enough, we both had a bit of money in our banks as well. We both had about 20,000 sterling each in our banks. So the idea was just a holiday. But then when we got over there, we ended up buying a whole road. Okay, so it was a new development. They'd put all the roads in and all the plots. So we literally bought a whole road, because 40,000 sterling in Brazil, you're basically a millionaire. So it's so funny. So we got into, obviously, being, obviously having a trade and being a carpenter and in the building game, we started building houses. So that was amazing, and we were doing that for the first year.
Had you always wanted to do something like that, to kind of invest your own money and do a kind of project on your own?
Big time. That was the dream. I think every tradesperson, that is the dream. You know what I mean? To eventually get their own company and to maybe get into property development and start building their own stuff. So, you know what I mean? That's what drove me as a youngster as well.
So that you found this as a kind of opportunity then for yourself in Brazil?
Exactly. And it was ready to go. So that was really exciting. And so we started that. In the meantime, this was 2014, and the Brazilian World Cup was on. So there was this bar opposite where we were staying, and it was derelict. No one had been in there for maybe 6 months. So over a few beers and a few barbecues, one of the nights, we decided to open a pub as well. So we called it Bar de Gringo, obviously being the gringo in Brazil. So that was incredible. We decorated it really amazing. We painted all the tables with all the different colours of the World Cup. And that was just the most amazing experience, that we had. And obviously just tying into the whole entrepreneurial thing and starting businesses. And so it was an amazing learning curve, doing all these different bits.
Did this feel like a good time? And I know looking back, right, you're using the word amazing. Did it feel like that at the time?
It did. And it was just the opportunities over there, and everything was easy to do. You know what I mean? For instance, in Europe, if you want to open a bar, it's going to take you probably a year to get all of the correct, you know what I mean, all the bits and
Licenses
pieces.
and all that,
Exactly.
yeah.
Over there, we decided to do it over a few beers. The next day, we had the keys,
Wow.
and we were getting ready to open. So just that, it's just so easy to do stuff over there. And then obviously because of my carpentry background, I made all the tables for the bar, and then the Brazilians couldn't believe that I was using softwood. So the old pallets, I was breaking the old pallets up and making tables. So in Brazil, they only use hardwood for building. So then that went on to opening another business where we were doing like eco design, and we would go to carrot factories and have thousands and thousands of softwood pallets, and we'd break them all up with a little crew, and then we would start making furniture. So we were doing bars and restaurants and decorating, doing signs outside. So
What kind of time span is this between let's say arriving in Brazil to having 3 businesses?
yeah, so we were there for 3 years. So within that 3 years, we managed to do all 3 of them.
But that seems like, so if you were to tell me today, and it's kind of person maybe that I am, that you're gonna open 3 businesses in the space of 3 years, I would be faced with a wall of sort of fear and anxiety about the whole thing. Was it hard to manage, or was there anything kind of stopping you, saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, or anything like that?
Yeah, not really. Like my father's a businessman, and he was, one of my big sort of idols growing up, and I learned a lot from him. So if I ever felt like that, I would give him a call, and he would always help me out, talk me through stuff. You know what I mean? And so he was always a really good person to speak to, with sort of business decisions and what I was getting up to.
And what about, was there risk at all? Did you have any debt, for example, to buy that street for the houses?
Not really, because Brazil just works completely different to Western civilization. Yeah, where you have to, credit is hard to come by. So you're not going to end up in a lot of debt. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, just obviously living in Brazil, the people there are very happy. A lot of people don't have a lot, and even though we had 3 businesses, we weren't actually making a huge amount of money, in terms of converting it back to euros or sterling. So it wasn't always just about trying to make loads of money in Brazil, because that wasn't the case. It was just the excitement and the fun of opening businesses, running businesses, and seeing them succeed. Well, that was obviously the idea.
Like, it sounds great, okay, but I did start this question as to how did you end up in Ireland? And it seems that this is the precursor. It sounds like something is about to happen now, or something. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So we decided to come back to the UK because obviously there's no money to be made in Brazil.
And was that it? So you'd started the businesses, but they weren't making that much money, even though you were kind of having fun, and the economics of it didn't seem.
Yeah, it makes money in Brazil, but converting it back to, as I said, euro or sterling, it just doesn't make any sense. So we knew we couldn't stay there long term. This was just a short term thing. So we knew to build and to grow and to sort of achieve anything in the world, we'd have to come back to London. That was the idea anyway. So we flew back. We actually didn't tell my parents or anyone we were flying back. It was on Boxing Day. And my girlfriend at the time, her visa wasn't accepted back in the UK. So they basically sent her back to Brazil. I stayed in the UK then. So this is the start of 2016. And we got some sort of legal advice, and they basically told us to go and live in a European country for at least 6 months, pay your taxes, and then you can come back to the UK. So we were obviously thinking, across Europe, maybe, Spain or Portugal. And then obviously Ireland come up, where, they obviously speak English here. And it was the best decision we ever made in our lives. You know what I mean? Beautiful country, and it's been really good to me over the last 8 years.
Had you been to Ireland prior to
Never
coming?
before, never before. So I went back to work with the loft conversion company in Croydon, and he was Lee Murphy. He's from Ireland, and I told him obviously what my plans were. And lucky enough, his nan had just gone into a nursing home in Lucan, and there was a 3-bed semi they said we could move into. So I was like, "Where's Lucan?" You know what I mean? And he was like, "No, it's grand, it's a great place." So I had no idea where I was coming or whatever, and we ended up in Lucan. It was at the back of the Penny Hill pub. Great little location. And yeah, I'd never been to Ireland. So when I'd got back to the UK, we obviously had no money whatsoever. My brother had borrowed me a couple of grand. So I bought an old transit van and a few tools and made my way over to Ireland and drove over.
I know you said it was the best decision you ever made, and in hindsight, it probably was like that. But I suppose, again, the question is, did it feel like that at the time?
Of course not. You know what I mean? I'd been away from my friends and family for 3 years in Brazil, you know what I mean? And obviously the plan was to go back and see them and to spend the rest of my life there. So, no, it was a complete shock, but I was in love at the time, and, you know what I mean? You do these things. So I didn't really have any real sort of idea what was going to happen in Ireland. But I just knew, I had a van and I had some tools and I had a place to live. So that was the first step. And as I said, I drove over.
The plan was to stay for 6 months, did you say?
Sorry?
The plan was to stay for 6 months,
was
it?
To stay for 6 months, exactly, to whatever, to pay our taxes or whatever they told us that we had to do, that we could then go back to London. But we both set up businesses, actually, and we just fell in love with Ireland. You know what I mean? Just the way of life here, the people, just everything about it. We just completely fell in love with Ireland within.
When you were describing London with the traffic and all that kind of stuff. Now you get slightly better weather in London, absolutely.
Yeah, so.
But it is busier from my experience than Dublin is. Even though it seems to me that you're like, oh, I came from London and then I ended up falling in love with Dublin. In Ireland, I'm kind of like, well, that doesn't sound, it doesn't sound like, the story. What is it really about Ireland that was so attractive?
Yeah, well, look, the putting it towards London. London's amazing to visit. You know what I mean? Tourists, they're going seeing London is incredible. Living in London is a different thing. You get into your car in the morning, you pull out, you got someone behind you, effing and blinding, bibbing the horn, telling you to get out of the way. And it's just no fun. It's well overpopulated and it's no fun. As I said, when I come into Ireland, I actually joined the Penny Hill Golf Society, and it was just a different life. You know what I mean? It was a little bit slower. As you said, less traffic. People have time to talk to each other. And just doing business was more enjoyable. You know what I mean? Actually doing business with people is more enjoyable here.
Why is that?
Just because it's just because it's not as busy in London. No one has time for anyone in London. So, you know what I mean? You would very rarely even meet up in person. You know what I mean? A lot of stuff would just be over phone calls, and you're always late and delayed and behind schedule all the time. So, you don't have a second to breathe. And Ireland is just a lot more personal.
In 2022, I don't know if I told you this, but myself and my wife, we moved to Portugal and we stayed for 18 months. And that experience, I was interested when we were over there. I was like, I wonder what it's like for people moving to Ireland. You always hear, Irish people are very welcoming, but what do they actually say? And I remember looking it up. There's slightly before ChatGPT was came into my world, but I was Googling, and all the stories were actually quite negative. They were, it was interesting to hear. Basically what the kind of summary was is that Irish people, they'll be really friendly to you if they meet you on a night out, but it's very hard to kind of break into their circle. And I remember chatting to my wife about that, and I thought that's probably true. Like, even in my sense, like, I'm happy to talk to people, but do I invite people in? Do I really make an effort with kind of new people here? And I was like, God, I probably don't, which made me feel a little bit, God, that is actually, I kind of, it was like one of those truths that someone tells you, you feel just a little bit, and having, being away, I realized, how important it was to kind of, to be kind of friends with people, obviously, and to meet new people and everything else. So was that a similar experience for
I
you?
completely agree with you. You know what I mean? Meeting someone for the first time, as you said, it's all, smiles and laughter. But then, yeah, a lot of, we found in Ireland, there's a lot of big families and big groups of friends that have been together for a long time, and it is hard to break into that. So we did find that a little bit at the start. But I'm quite an outgoing person, and as I said, we joined the local pub, the local golf team, and stuff like that. So straight away, that sort of opened a few doors for me.
So it wasn't. It just took a little bit of time, I suppose.
Took a little bit of time, exactly. But no, it's very true. What you're saying. But I think time is the essence here. And once you do get over that timing, things do open up, and you do sort of get a bit accepted, into the sort of culture and into the country. So
what happened to your girlfriend then?
yeah, we didn't know anyone in Ireland, so it was difficult. I mean, at least in London and Brazil, we had friends and family. So unfortunately, things didn't work out for us. Um, she actually set up her own cleaning business, which she still has now in Ireland. She's very successful. So, but yeah, as you said, things didn't work out, and lucky enough, I met an Irish girl, and we have two beautiful daughters now. So things couldn't have worked out any better in the end.
And how soon was it? How soon after was it that you met your?
Yeah, so Aoife, yeah, I was only single maybe for 6 months, and she snapped me up, so it happened quite quickly.
Was it a difficult time for you at that stage?
It was. So I had to move out. I was in a little flat on my own, just up near on Arbor Hill. It actually overlooked the Phoenix Park. So I was in a little 1-bedroom flat with just me and my dog, Jacko. So it was tough.
Did you think about moving home?
I did, but what? I'd already put, I was probably up to about 2.5 years now into the attic company, and I'd put a lot of, time and effort into it, and I'd met some amazing people, and I'd built the company up to that point. So to be honest, it didn't even cross my mind. I knew I wanted to stay because of the company, but because I liked it in Ireland as well.
So let's talk a bit about the company now. So you started out man with the van, literally in Ireland, and when we talked previously, you had told me that the model that you had seen from is it Lee Murphy? Did you say is
Yeah, LMB.
And he used a specific model in London, which was different, which allowed him to kind of operate in a more kind of nimble, flexible, scalable way in London. And you kind of took that model and you've implemented it here in Ireland. Can you talk a little bit about that? What the model is and why it's helpful?
Yeah, it was incredible. So I'd worked for a lot of companies in the UK growing up. That company was the first one I worked for. I didn't even work for them because I was a subcontractor that didn't have many people on the books. And the majority of the company was subcontractors. So he would get his attic conversions in, say at 50 grand. And then he would work out all of his trades that he needs to get in. And then he puts his bit on the top. So he's not really managing the people, so to speak, and he's more managing the jobs.
And he has no overhead, right? He doesn't have people that he's employing and then needs to send out on jobs and have them utilized the whole time.
Exactly. So it's a very, very easy way to make sure you're not losing money to start off with. If anything goes wrong, you can scale back. And if things are going well, you can scale forward very quickly. by just getting more and more teams in.
Why do you think that he was one of the only people doing this?
Well, I'm sure in London there were other companies doing the same, but this was the first for me. You know what I mean? The first for me seeing this. So I was blown away by what he was doing.
Could you see it straight away?
Oh man, I've always been into business. I've always been into selling, and so I couldn't believe what he was doing, and I wanted to get as close as possible to him to learn as much as I could from what he was doing. So what he actually had was a shop front in Croydon that was like an estate agent's, and it had in the window would have all the attics. So it was quite a cool little setup. And then he would obviously have his, staff working in the office. And yeah, just everything he'd done was brilliant. And so I worked with him on and off, either side of Brazil with him. And yeah, it was so obviously that when I came to Ireland, in my van, I worked for a company, an attic company, for 3 months. Learned how to do attics in Ireland, which were very similar, but I just needed to learn the sort of laws and the regulations over here. And then within 3 months, then I set up the attic company, knowing I was gonna base my company and the structure on what I'd learned
And
in.
another thing about this model probably is that so the subcontractors you're using, they're tradespeople and they're self-employed, right? So if they know if they do a good job, they're kind of incentivized to do a good job because they'll be invited back for more work essentially. Whereas if I suppose if you have employees, sometimes they can maybe they don't need to do as perfect a job because they're employed and they have that security. Would that be kind of
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then they don't necessarily are going to work as hard than a subcontractor because they get paid per day. They don't care. You know what I mean? They obviously care about what they're doing, but what they get done in a day is not really going to be too much of a problem to them. Um, as you said, with a subcontractor, it's a price. So obviously, the quicker they do it, the more they're going to get paid. And if the job's done correctly and it's done well, then we're going to give them more work.
what was it hard to find the right subcontractors, and did you have a few hiccups or
It was
anything?
a lot of hiccups. You know what I mean? As we spoke about earlier, the shortage of tradespeople in Ireland in is a major concern. So we kissed a lot of frogs. Over the years, we went through a lot of bad people, but it's all about identifying that as quick as possible and getting rid of them and not giving them too much time. It's very hard in our game to really know if anyone's good or good enough before we've actually tried them. So, a very, very short trial is normally what we do, supervised. And if they're not good and they don't meet the cut, we get rid of them straight away.
What about Lee Murphy? Sorry if you, I don't know if you know this, but do you know if he stumbled across this and he just, do you know if he learned it the hard way somehow by doing it the other way and then?
I'm not too sure actually. Yeah, it was such a big company that it wasn't like I was really on, personal terms with Lee. You know what I mean? So, but I'm sure he started possibly doing jobs, one at a time, and then he scaled it up and into that. But obviously, learning that from him, it was very easy for me. I had it, I had my sort of 5-year plan of what I wanted to achieve. So it was quite easy for me. I knew what I needed to do.
That was going to be my next question. Did you have goals, and if so, what were they? I suppose you had a 5-year plan. What did it look like, and what were you kind of hoping to achieve in that time frame?
Yeah, so well, the main thing was to get off the tools. So obviously, when I first arrived, I was doing everything. I was doing the timber work, the plaster. I was doing, a bit of everything, doing the quotes, the sales, the paperwork. I was pretty much, in terms of what we have now, we have about 15 people that do what I was doing on my own, from day one. So the idea was to get off the tools as quick as possible, and then I could really then concentrate on the company, where it was going, building the company, and sort of moving forward. Um, the first sort of 18 months was very slow. I mean, I didn't know anyone here in Ireland, So even, getting the websites and finding good people, it was a slow start. But as soon as we got rolling and I got up to 2 teams, that was when it really started.
How long did that take to get to that point?
Yeah, probably. So the first year we might have done maybe 6 or 7 attics the first year, and that was just obviously doing one at a time, and not even after each other, because we didn't have a lot of work lined up. Um, Within year 3, we was already up to about 100 in year 3. So it was, what I mean, after 3 years, even that third year, things went quite quickly.
Can you give um uh, can you give me an idea of the scale of it now? What's it look like today? Is it 9 or 10 years you're in it altogether?
Yeah, so 8 years now the attic company's been up and running. So yeah, so the last sort of 3 years we've gone over 200 attics every year. So it seems quite mad from an outside view, like we can actually get that done. But there's obviously a lot of work and a lot of stuff that happens in the background, that we need sort of in place. Really good sort of systems and operations to make that nice and smooth.
How has your role changed over time? So I suppose you were on the tools, if you like, at the very start, and then once you had 2 teams, I suppose you would have been a little bit more maybe management, operations, sales focus. I don't know. How has that kind of transition to where you are now?
So yeah, it was really difficult growing because you do a bit of everything. You always realize, sorry, I should rephrase that. You always think that you can't afford to employ that next person. So getting someone in to do the sales, getting in an office manager, getting in an accounts manager, getting in an operations manager, all of these roles were massive. I didn't think we could afford it at the time, but we always thought if we get a bigger boot, we would then fit it. Do you know what I mean? So we sort of always went backwards to go forwards all the time. So I think a lot of companies always worry about scaling and moving forward is because it's going to cost them more at the start to do that. But then they don't realize then after a few months or whatever, then that will catch back up again and then that will double, in sort of revenue and profit. So sorry, back to your question then. Yeah. So
Well, just before just on that, what you were just saying, I was wondering, because in my experience, I've sometimes hired people that I'm thinking this is the person I need. I know I need it, and it's a bit of a jump, but I need to do it. If that person doesn't work out, for me anyway, it's been a very painful, we thought we were going back X amount to go forward, but we actually end up going, X times 4, back in the other direction. And that was very painful. And it's made me a little bit more fearful, or at least less trigger happy to hire someone. Have you ever had an incident like that, or has that been tricky?
we have. The big roles for us were sort of project managers. And we've been, as we were growing, we had a few issues, but it still taught us though how that new role develops the company, and how that new role then how that sort of how it sort of puts us out with how we're doing things. So even though we might have made mistakes, we still learn from what that impact that person was doing to okay, it does work. We just need the right person for it.
Have you had support along the way, someone to discuss that with? I know you mentioned your dad earlier.
Not really. Like we got a business coach in the last year, who's been working with me sort of personally and with the team. But apart from that, no. Like as I said, my dad was is a businessman himself, and he's done a bit of everything over the years. So he's always a good person to speak to. But generally, just how it feels. You know what I mean, and just always moving forward. Yeah.
Have you gotten the business coach because you feel like now you can afford it?
Yeah, and I never thought, yeah, and they're probably not as expensive as we all think. You know what I mean? But just even thinking about getting a business coach, it just seems like, you know what I mean, you need to be, earning X amount of money. But that's helped a lot. Yeah, that's really, really helped a lot.
What's the kind of the main thing you've taken from that or gotten from it?
So the last year we have really focused on our systems, our processes, how we go about our sales, um, the process from the initial phone calls and then what happens, the follow ups. So we've really put a really strong structure in this year, that we feel that works. We've also brought in, we use Trello, which is our CRM systems, and then we use Zapier as well, which is the automations. So, we can do a hell of a lot more work now with using all of this good software. So that's really what we've been focused on this year and sort of going forward.
And then to take me back just to, I suppose, your role as the managing director, what does it look like day to day for you now? What are you kind of mainly focused on?
Yeah, so for me now, I obviously overlook the whole team. I like to think I'm the glue, sort of just keeping everything together. Um, I don't do the sales anymore. We have an amazing guy, David, who's doing the sales, and he's doing an absolute fantastic job. Um, so once we get the sale, I then contact the customer and I arrange them to go over to take final measurements. So I would go over there then, obviously introduce myself, obviously being the owner of the company. We would go through the design of the attic, which I still personally do on every job. Um, we would then sketch out sort of what they want, with as many sort of ideas and whatever I can give. And then we would sort of go through like the finances, confirm the payment on the job, and then sort of project manage the first part of the job. So I still am hands on, in the company. I'm just doing that sort of middle section, from obviously after the sale to getting the job started.
And how do you envision that changing now over the next, say, 3 years? What's your kind of vision, if you like, for yourself and the company?
Yeah, so we've just got in an operations manager who started 5 weeks ago, who's been an absolute game changer. He's been absolutely fantastic. So he's come on board just to same again to improve sort of systems. But the idea is that he is hopefully going to sort of take my role, and then I will be completely hands off, and just to then, really look after the company. Look after its future, look after its culture, look after the brands, and yeah, really work on that side of the company.
How important has culture been, do you think, over the life of the company?
Yeah, really important, especially because we have a lot of subcontractors. You know what I mean? And even though they are subbies, they do work for us full time. So that is very, very difficult. But I'm a very laid back guy. My door's always open. We always do at least two events for the year. For the Attica, we do a summer event and a winter event. Yeah, and the culture is massive. You know what I mean? And that's basically, the part of the company is the culture.
Have you tried to define it in any way or kind of codify what the culture is?
Yeah, so obviously, trustworthy, is something that always comes up. We're in people's houses, their own personal space. You know what I mean? We're coming in and we're obviously doing a big job. So, being trustworthy is number one on the agenda. All our guys are amazing. Um, and, just looking after each other. The way that there's so many cogs in the wheel, for just one attic conversion, we all need to be able to get on and we all need to respect each other, for the next person that's coming. So that's massive, you know what I mean? And all of our guys get on, and there's a real harmony there with everyone in the company. So, you know what I mean? Obviously, your work is good and it's important, but you have to think about the next person. So that's really important. And, I feel that that's really strong in the attic company, and that's what delivers really good quality attics over and over again.
We were discussing before we hit record that things are pretty good for Tim Sparsis at the moment. You know, you've won the Best Family Business Award recently. You did a very good time in the Dublin Marathon. You know, things are, and the business is clearly going well. You know, regardless what it looks like from the outside in, you'd say yourself that you know you're happy with how things are. And do you think? Does it feel like you've arrived a little bit recently?
It does a little bit, actually. It does. You know what I mean? You know, we've worked really, really hard over 8 years, blood, sweat, and tears, and to get nominated for the Family Business Awards, and then obviously to go on to win it, it just shows that all the hard work we've put in has actually, come to something. And we were completely shocked. We were at the awards ceremony. It was a couple of weeks ago now, and hoping, top three we would have been happy with, and to win it was an absolute delight, and it was incredible. A real boost for the company, for the team, everyone that puts the hard work in. And, a lot of it was down to the votes from all the customers as well. So it's great to know that all of our customers as well are really happy with the work we've done. Not every job goes 100%, but it's the way you recover on them. And as long as you leave the job, smiling at the end, that's the main thing. But winning that was just feels fantastic at the moment. So,
and not to forget about your time in the Dublin Marathon. So you're a keen runner and kind of very active. Tell me just a little bit about that.
Absolutely love it. We spoke a little bit off camera before about mental health and you know what I mean, with sports and running and doing fitness. And for me, running, it just completely gets me out of my head for work. So most entrepreneurs are thinking about work 24/7, even when they're like, fast asleep. So the whole running, first of all, it just completely gets you, out of your head with work, and it makes you feel great as well. You know what I mean? And, I put a lot of training in this year for the Dublin Marathon. Started back in February, and I was hoping for, around about 3:30 maybe, and absolutely felt fantastic when I was out there. Amazing support. We're out there with the Dublin crowds, and I managed to get 3:19. So I was over the moon. Yeah. So it's been really good.
But it's been helpful for you kind of all the way along, for your career. Have you always done a bit of kind of running?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, I used to do a lot of football, golf, tennis, all sorts of stuff. But a couple of dodgy hips now in my early 40s, believe it or not, is running. It doesn't hurt, and it's it's something you can do at any time as well. Running, you know what I mean. As you were saying, you do it on your lunch breaks. I go sometimes early morning, and I'm in a running club as well. But yeah, it's definitely helped me with business as well.
Running is so easy in a way because you just put on your gear. I have to do a quick warm up before I get injured, but quick warm up and I'm gone, and I can be, but between kind of deciding I'm going to go for a run, I'm 20 minutes, I'm outside, I'm doing it, and I'm kind of already kind of warmed up, and I'm just, I'm always surprised about how much it helps kind of my my thinking and everything for the rest of the day. Yeah.
Brilliant. And look, we're not going to lie, actually thinking about going for the run's the hardest bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As soon as you're out there and you're mid-flow and you finish, it's such a great feeling. I'm a better person for it as well, in and around my team and my family. And especially when you book stuff like the Dublin Marathon, and and you got something to really train for. It's exciting, you know what I mean? It's fun and exciting, and you meet new people, and you know what I mean? Obviously work is important, and we put a lot of love into the Attic company, but you do need to have other stuff as well to keep your mind sort of ticking over.
We know each other through EO, through the Entrepreneurs Organization. Tell me about how you kind of stumbled across the organization and how you joined.
Over the last couple of years, I've really embraced networking. Joining local tennis clubs and golf clubs and whatever else. I joined then BNI, which was great. It was like a networking thing. And then I come across EO, which was just like the mother bird of all sort of networking and some communities in the entrepreneurial world. And I've been a member now for about 2.5 years. met some amazing people, had some amazing experiences. And as you know, the forums that we go in are just the sort of cream on the crop. So yeah,
What's been the most helpful thing about that, about Forum?
yeah. So forum, we're in a group of 8 entrepreneurs all together, and the main thing is we talk about our 5% in that forum, which is fully confidential. I can't talk about this with people at work. I can't even talk about it with my partner. Some of this stuff is just going around in my head. So to be able to open up and tell, 8 trusted people who all have their own successful businesses, the sort of issues and problems and troubles that I'm going through. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and getting their support and getting their sort of feedback is brilliant.
How did you come across it? Was there someone within the group that
There was actually, yeah, Brian Keegan, who's a great guy. Yeah, I was actually sitting next to him in an event. I think it was the Pendulum Summit or one of these events, and I was happened to sit next to him. We got chatting. He told me a bit about EO and what he does. We had a coffee a couple of weeks afterwards, and then I was, I joined up in the end. So
I think what's great about something like EO is that other networking groups that can be quite focused on selling, and when that's the focus, it's very hard to be very honest, because
yeah.
Business doesn't always go brilliantly well, and the kind of front that you might portray to people, through the website, through social media, through all these things, behind it, quite often can be, I've lost a key employee, or I'm worried about XYZ, and because of I suppose the values and the culture in EO, it just makes it a safe place to open up about that stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, it's not really a networking, it's more for support, for sort of entrepreneurial support, and having those people to speak to, and yeah, so 100% agree with you.
So you're stuck in Ireland now. You'd have to say, with this business, your daughters, and everything else. What does the future look like for Tim Sparsis and the Attic Company?
Yeah, so we have started the scaffolding company, believe it or not, 18 months ago. A friend of mine from the UK, I persuaded him to come over, so he's been here, and we're running that together. So the idea is to get that up to, where we are with the Attic Company, maybe in the next 10 years. So that's really exciting.
Can we just stop there for a second? Because I worked in a scaffolding company.
No way.
I did, in New Jersey, for my J1 visa back when I was 21, and no, I was a little bit older, tell a lie, 23 or so, and I thought it was a very interesting business. And shout out to Michael O'Malley and Sally Breslin. You're not listening, but they were involved with me in this company, and essentially I thought it was an interesting business because most of the scaffolding could be used on future jobs, and it would come off the buildings, the kind of the high rise in Manhattan, and would come out to New Jersey, and it was my job to stack them, which wasn't the most exciting thing I've ever done, but that's what I did all day, every day, in the blistering heat. And but it was great. It was great to see how it all worked and all of that. What kind of what does it look like in Ireland?
Yeah, so the reason we started it was because obviously we do attic conversions and we need scaffolding. So, it just made sense for us to do it. The great thing about scaffolding is once you buy the scaffolding, there's not many overheads. You're just buying the product and then you're reusing it over and over again. As with Ireland, there's a lot of building work going on at the moment. The last 10 years has just been amazing. So there's tons of work out there. Every job needs scaffolding. So it's a no-brainer. An absolute no-brainer.
And what does that industry look like? Was it difficult to find the right scaffolding that you needed for the job? Was that?
Yeah, it's a little bit different in Ireland than the UK. UK it's called tube and fitting. In Ireland, it's quick stage, and it's just put together a little bit differently. So we originally bought sort of secondhand stuff to get ourselves going. But now we're getting in, the stuff from the UK, and we're also buying the Irish stuff. I'll tell you one thing we're doing a little bit differently than the Irish market. They're called tin roofs. So in the UK now, every building site that is having an extension or a big building job would have scaffolding going up with a complete metal tin roof over the top, which is fully sealed. So you can work 24/7, rain, shine or snow, you can work. It actually rains more in Ireland. So why the heck are we not doing it over here?
Yeah.
So that's something we've been looking at for the last year, and we've been doing a lot of, they're called tin roofs. So we've been doing a lot of that recently. So I'm sure, I don't know if we've started this craze, but I'm sure in the future you're going to see a lot of big building jobs with tin roofs on them now.
It's interesting. I was also in Hong Kong years ago, and they use bamboo as scaffolding, and you can see it sort of moves. It doesn't. It's not as sturdy as the steel or whatever it is we're using here. And it always seemed, you might be hard getting that past the regulator.
Yeah, I doubt it. I think we'll pass on the bamboo for the minute.
So you've the scaffolding company, which is you're growing that, and that's going well. What about the attic company and everything else you're doing?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. We want to be the leading company. We want to bring innovative ideas. We want to be, the first people to just develop new ideas and be the leading sort of brand in Ireland. We're building a good team of people that we have been doing over the last few years. So there's no reason we can't do that. So just onwards and upwards, keep growing, keep seeing how we can improve things, and just keep building.
Tim Sparsis, thank you very much for coming in this morning. It's been a great chat, and we wish you the best of luck with everything you do in the future.
Thank you, Connor. Cheers.